Oh, okay. I'm recording. Hey, how's it going, everybody? My name is Mark. For those that are new to the channel, and if you're new to the channel, thanks for watching and subscribing and writing comments and things like that. But I want to be very, very quick, um, and I'm gonna say this: if you are investing in gear, if you do invest in some gear, um, I would sit there and say this, and this shouldn't be very long. But whether it's a microphone or a console or some outboard gear or even just cables, if you can upgrade, whether it's a piece of gear itself or some internal parts in a piece of gear that you buy. For example, if you buy some lower cost microphone like MXL microphones, you can actually make those microphones sound better than they probably already sound pretty decent if you already are doing well with them. But you can definitely make them sound better by doing a little bit of soldering and electronic component upgrades to it, whether it be the capsule or the capacitors or things internally. I did a video a while back about an MXL microphone, a 990, where I took a 990 microphone and upgraded the caps, and it improved the sound on it tremendously. So the secret to a reason why expensive high end gear compared to the cheaper lower cost gear, the reason why, one of the reasons why it sounds better and so forth is because it's already built with better components. So if you even the odds with upgrading the components as much as you possibly can, you definitely will get yourself closer to those pieces of gear without breaking the bank. So, for example, if you have microphones, you can check out microphoneparts.com and see if they have your style of microphone that you can upgrade the electronics and the capsules and things like that. Um, these are things that have been done in the music business, in the recording studio business. They've known for years. You can have one. You can have one studio that can have an SSL console, and another studio have the same model, but when people go to a certain studio, like that studio with that SSL sounds better than that studio with that SSL. Why is that? Well, a lot of the times because they'll take a channel or channels out, they'll take the channels out of the console, and they will insert it with upgraded capacitors, better operational amps, or what we know as op amps, and better preamp signals and things like that. They'll modify them, and they do this. They not only do that with their console gear, their speakers. They'll do that with their rack gear, their compressors. Their compressors um, might have better components. They'll have people in the business come and it could be the same side after piece of gear. It could be Universal Audio 1176 as an example compressor. Then you have another studio that has the same. It looks the same on the outside, but what they've done is they've upgraded op amps, capacitors, tubes, or whatever. They've done these mods, and so people will listen to this one studio now, and it'll be a fully modded studio. And sometimes a lot of people in the business, that in recording businesses, know to do this. And it's the reason why sometimes you go to some studios and they're like, "Why did that studio sound so good?" And that's what it is. They're modifying their gear. They're upgrading components. So that is something that you should definitely think about. If you got some piece of gear and you can have it recapped, upgraded with better sounding components if possible, definitely do it if you can afford to do it. Simply because it's the reason why your top studios compared to other studios that they got into the game, they probably didn't know to do this. Sometimes some people will invest in the recording studio and they'll buy the console, they'll buy the speakers, they'll buy the outboard gear, the microphones, and the cables, but they'll wonder why, for example, maybe this Los Angeles studio or this New York studio or this Houston studio, whatever. It's like, why do they sound so good? And a lot of times we'll think, well, it's because the engineer knows how to mic the gear or plug up the gear. Um, he knows what EQs and he knows what compressors and all this. but sometimes just as things that you just don't know. And Crystal Algae and other engineers have let this kind of stuff slip out. And I just want to throw this out. Sometimes, he'll sit there and say, oh yeah, I got this one compressor, but it's modified. And they'll name a certain name like Joe Meek or Billy such and such or William what such and such or whatever the case came and now did their signature mod on it. Like he might have upgraded certain tubes. It's kind of like with my tubes. When I bought some of my ARC compressors and other compressors, was I took the stock tubes out of them. It may not look, well, these are the old ones. These are the old tubes. That's the old tube. That's the original tube that came in some of these. And I took those tubes out and I bought like Mueller tubes. And I took the stock tube out and put a Mueller tube in there. That's one example of modifying your gear. Upgrading your tubes, upgrading capacitors, upgrading the op amps, upgrading the gear is the reason why. It's like I got a Clark, the KTTA, which is basically a LA2A compressor clone. It's in the rack, you can't see it. But they have an Opto, Black Lion sells this upgrade for it. For the Opto cell to give the compressor a little bit more warmth than just the stock form. I'm going to buy, it's a $99 upgrade. I'm definitely going to buy that $99 upgrade to that compressor. It's things like that when you listen and you run vocals or bass or signal through that compressor, you're like, man, that sounds just a little bit warmer, or that sounds a little bit better. Even if you bought the same compressor, like, well, why does that one sound a little bit? Because it's modified. If you can get better tubes, better that, this upgrades, there you have it. So I'm going to end the video on that. Just wanted to throw that out there for you to think about on your gear. If you can upgrade your microphone, the caps, the compress, with a little bit of time, some solder work, you can make that microphone. And that's the reason why, especially if you don't have the kind of money to buy the high-end microphones. But then, believe it or not, even some of the most expensive microphones, some of them in some of those studios are still even modified. That's just the reason why certain studios have a certain edge with over certain other studios. Even though they may have the same equivalent of millions of dollars worth of equipment, they can have the same as far as what it looks like, as far as what's in their rack and their console and their gear. But that, you're like, man, hey, his LA2A compressor that one sounds good. These sound, at this studio, they sound decent, but that studio's LA2A compressor sound better. And that's what it is. They've done some mods. And there are people out there that do those kind of mods. And that's what gives some certain studios an edge. So if you buy gear and you can get upgrades, whether it's tubes or electronic components, and upgrade it, that's the reason why. Because the electronics, in the end, for gear, is the key component to why certain gear sounds good, is because of the electronics. It's like some microphones have an electrical capacitor, and they might take those out and put a ceramic or a film capacitor, and they're like, wow, that one sounds better because it's running signal across that film capacitor over the electrolytical. That's why. So that's going to do it for this video. Thanks for watching. Y'all have a great one, and see you in the next one.